These ice crystals reflect the absolute beauty of nature. If you put a word next to each, describing the resemblance of its very shape, it can form into a beautiful poetry. These photos were taken by Masaru Emoto, a doctor of alternative medicine. In his book The Hidden Messages in Water, he took photographs of ice crystals and accompanying experiments such as that of the rice and water 30-day experiment. Emoto claimed that water was a blueprint for our reality and that emotional energies and vibrations could change its physical structure. His water crystal experiments consisted of exposing water in glasses to various words, pictures, or music, then freezing it and examining the ice crystal's aesthetic properties with microscopic photography. He claimed that water exposed to positive speech and thoughts created visually pleasing ice crystals, and that negative intentions yielded ugly ice formations. Emoto held that different water sources produce different ice structures. For example, he held that water from a mountain stream, when frozen, showed structures of beautifully shaped geometric designs, but that water from polluted sources created distorted, randomly formed ice structures. He held that these changes could be eliminated by exposing water to ultraviolet light or certain electromagnetic waves. While his work remains controversial, we must raise the question, how could this happen? And is there any scientific support behind it? Let's turn the time back to the 1980s. A renowned immunologist named Jacques Benveniste first raised the notion of water memory. His claim ignited a big turbulence in the scientific community. Almost 2 decades later, his work was continued by Professor Luc Montagnier, the joint recipient of the 2008 Nobel Prize in Physiology for the discovery of HIV. The question is, why would such reputable and successful top-tier scientists decide to step into the troubled water, to pursue such a wild yet controversial path? In applying Benveniste's technology in his own research, Professor Montagnier detected electromagnetic signals during his experiment on the blood plasma from patients infected with HIV. In the quest of seeking the truth, he and his team conducted experiments of detecting traces of DNA electromagnetic signals from water. Using the DNA of an HIV-infected patient, the electromagnetic background noise is measured and transformed into a digital file. Then the digital file is sent over the internet to another lab, from where it will be used to reconstitute the DNA by using the same electromagnetic background noise recorded. Although on the surface this sounds much like science fiction, the result of the experiment is astonishing. To describe in greater details, first, a few DNA molecules from the HIV-infected patient is added to the sterile water. Then the water is being added to dilute the concentration of the DNA molecules. In particular, 9 volumes of water is added to 1 volume of the DNA solution. In repeating the process, 1 volume of the mixed solution from the previous mixture is used to begin the next dilution cycle, from which another 9 volumes of water will be added to further dilute it. This process repeats until at the end, when the desired dilution is reached, where all DNA molecules are being removed from the water. This process is known as high dilution. This experiment carries out until the 24th dilution, which would be equivalent of diluting 1 drop of the original DNA into the Atlantic Ocean. The solution gets its electromagnetic fields measured and registered. Then the registered electromagnetic signal is converted to a digital file. It is important to point out, the electromagnetic signals are emitted by pure water, which was once charged by the DNA molecules. And the DNA molecules are no longer present in the solution. According to Professor Montagnier, the diluted water retained a memory of the original DNA traces and it is being reflected in the form of electromagnetic signals. In the next stage of the experiment, the digital files are sent over the internet to a remote lab, from where the digital files will be used to reconstitute the DNA. The experiment is conducted in Italy at the University of Sannio Benevento, which is famous for the quality of its lab specialized in molecular biology. The Italian team carried out Professor Montagnier's experiment the reverse manner. The recorded signals is first processed by the computer and then sent into a tube of purified water, from which it will be memorized. This memorization process lasts for about an hour. In the last phase of the experiment, a technology called PCR is used. PCR is a very sensitive technique that allows rapid amplification of a specific segment of the DNA. It has revolutionized molecular biology lab work in the last 30 years, but also the field of forensic science for the identification of criminals. PCR consists putting in some chemical elements building blocks called nucleotides. These are the organic molecules of DNA. An enzyme called polymerase then is added, serving as the catalyzer. When a fragment of a DNA is mixed into the water, the polymerase led the chain reaction to reconstitute the complete sequence of the DNA. This polymerase reaction had earned Kary Mullis a Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1993. But in this experiment, it's important to point out, there exists no physical DNA material but only water that had listened to the electromagnetic signal. It would be impossible for the DNA to reconstruct itself when without the original model. But the team did it, the DNA is resurrected. This is absolutely breathtaking. Finally, there is one important step to complete this experiment. An independent laboratory would conduct the comparison between the original and the reconstituted DNA. The result shows that the sequence was a 98% identical, which is enough to declare that the experience is a success. This proved that a DNA transduction is possible. On the surface, there is no direct connection between the DNA experiment and Emoto's work. But does that mean the ice crystal formation in Emoto's photos are just a coincidence? Despite the controversial reaction from the public, sometimes the answer may just lay right beneath the ice surface. Perhaps, it deserves to take a closer look.